I think you just ratcheted your diff. His diff's definitely ratcheting. Polaris problem. I think we need another front diff.
Welcome back to the channel. We're gonna have a shop day today. It's been a while since we've done a shop video. We don't try to do a lot of the same things over and over again, even though we fix a lot of the same stuff. But if you haven't been following along, this is a 2022 Polaris Turbo R 4-seater Ultimate Edition. We've had it probably about a year and a half-ish. And the last ride we went out, if you watched the last video, I did ratchet the diff. If you're not familiar with Polarises, they have a cage in them that turns on a couple of hubs, and if you compromise those, that's what they call ratcheting. It'll make a pop 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 sound a lot of times, and it'll break that cage or crack it. So I'm going to tear this apart today. We're going to dig into it, see what's going on, see if there's anything else broke or not. But I've never pulled the diff out of this one. We've pulled the diff out of everything else we've owned, but not this one. So this will be the first time for us. This is the same thing as a Pro XP or like an RS1 style diff is what they call it. So they're supposed to be able to come out from the front, but hey, follow along. We'll see what happens and see what we can get into. But I did buy an upgraded kit, so it has an upgraded cage and a billet retaining ring and a stronger armature plate. So while we're already in there, we're going to go ahead and upgrade and fix that stuff as well.
Please hold for a very important message.
All right, just to give you an update, I've got everything tore off the front end. I still got the diff in it. I do have an aftermarket winch and winch plate on this, so that'll be the next thing I'm fixing to tear off. But I just took the upper ball joint loose, the shock loose, of course took the brakes off, the tie rod off, dropped that out of the way, pulled the axle out, so now I can get to that. I still have the sway bars connect up. I may have to take those back off to put it back together, but taking it apart, I only filmed one side, because it's just pretty much the same thing on the other side. So again, upper ball joint, tie rod end, shock mount, and then pulling this apart. If you're not used to the Turbo R's and the Pro R's, one of the big things that sold me on this is the unitized hub and the wheel bearings. So it's a lot better set up that way. And this is the first time I really paid attention, but it actually has 3 piston calipers. So that's really cool, which kind of explains why this big heavy girl can slow down so well. So you can see I have the winch tore out. All the Turbo R's do not come with a factory winch, which is kind of upsetting in the fact of how much money you spend for these. I think I mentioned that in our kind of initial video. It makes you think, well, why didn't they go ahead and put a factory winch in? It does bolt to the bulkhead, and I bought this kit from Super ATV. If you're looking for one, I really like it. If you see these 2 slots here, Super ATV actually put little hooks on here so you can actually set it in there without holding all of it up and start your bolts. Really nice, really simple. Just have a Harbor Freight Badlands winch, no problems there. If you do have this set up already on there, you'd realize that you lose your bumper hoop. The bumper hoop that's where that bolted to, so you lose that. And I just want to let you know, if you want to put it back on, it's pretty simple. You don't have to have a whole lot of fabrication skills, but if you have a couple pieces of flat iron laying around and a welder, you can. You can see where I did just cut ours off. You can see where the tubes came out here, whacked that off, welded this plate in there, and I just drilled and tapped the winch plate deal here, but I still left these pieces so that it'll hook to the plastic, and you do retain the looks of your factory bumper. Again, it's just for looks anyways from the factory, so it don't really matter because it had no real strength to it if you actually did bump into anything. But I just wanted to put it back in so that it looked stock or factory still. So one more thing I kind of want to point out. Again, this is for people that don't really have Polarises if you've never tore it apart. I'll try to get the light just right. These do have a roll pin going through the drive shaft that hooks it to the front diff. So you have to push that roll pin out. It's kind of a pain to always get it out and get it back in. My old one, and I don't know if I'm gonna do it to this one yet, I had to pull the diff out of it so many times. I ended up making that a bolt so you could just bolt it in and out. But just kind of give you a heads up that, hey, if you haven't never pulled one of these apart, there's a roll pin in there. You got to push it out with a hammer and a punch only. That's the only way to really get those suckers out of there. Is that way you can slide the drive shaft back just a little bit to pull the diff out. But these diffs actually pull out more from the front instead of coming out of the side, so it may not have to move the drive shaft at all, but you do still have to take that out. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry about the lighting, but it is kind of dark up in there. All right, we got the front diff out. So there's only 2 bolts that go through here that hold the diff in. There's these brackets that actually go up in here. You can pull those out and make it a little easier to drop out. But you do have to pull the upper A-frame out, at least on the driver's side, to get the bolts out and get the diff out of there. The bolt on the back side back there actually goes through the floorboard, but they did make a little provision to pull the bolt out so you can pop a hole out from inside and get the bolt out of there. Well, we ordered parts to put it back together, but it will be to be continued on the next. Who's got their phone on? So this retainer ring here, it broke all of these clips off. It did tweak the sprag. The sprags are better than the old XP1000 diffs, but we have major carnage with a crack right down the ring gear. So a whole new ring gear is going to have to be ordered to put it back together.
Oh, come on!
So won't be today that she goes back together. So remember where we kind of left off, but it's been about a week. I did order a brand new ring gear and pinion. I've already installed it, so the pinion's back in, snap rings in, new seal. You want to make sure that when you're doing this, you save the shim off your old ring gear if you do end up breaking it. Like I said, here's the old one. You can see the crack in there. So brand new ring gear from Polaris. I'll put new bearings on the hubs as well. And then I did buy a new ring gear bearing, or pinion bearing, but the pinion did come with a new one. So just putting it back together now, fixing to put the sprag in. I ordered an HD Extreme off-road billet sprag and plate and new springs to where all this was originally plastic and this was a cast aluminum. So I went with this. I bought this for my setup. Damon did buy the Sandcraft setup. They do look very similar, other than the fact that his stuff's anodized where these aren't, but looking at the quality of them, they look really close. You do have to reuse your spring pins there, so you want to save those when you're tearing it apart.